What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Quick Breaks NBA DFS podcast, brought to you by the good guys over at Fantasy Degens. As always, Sean Mitchell here, bringing you the 6-game slate on tonight's slate. You can find me at smitchell17 on Twitter. Hopefully everybody is enjoying your week. We finally got to a Friday. Had kind of a little bit of a break there with the new year. Hopefully everybody is starting off the new year great. Tonight, again, we have a 6-game slate. A couple of good games, not really big totals so far. 2 games of the 6 we have, or 3 games of the 6 we have a total on, and 2 of these games already have over 220. So got a lot of good spots. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. The first game we have is the Atlanta Hawks going into Boston. Boston is an 11.5 point favorite. We do not have a total. Kind of waiting to see the Trae Young news. It's supposedly he is playing. Over the last 10 games in terms of pace, you have the Hawks coming in as the fastest team in the league. Boston is 26th. Next game on the slate, we have the Heat going into Orlando to play the Magic. Miami is -1.5 here on the road. No total on this one. Obviously, Orlando has a plethora of injuries. John Isaac went out for a couple of months now. Aaron Gordon is still dealing with an Achilles injury. They're already out. Al-Farouq Aminu has been out. They just have a bunch of injuries piled up right now. Miami is 28th in terms of pace over their last 10. Orlando is 19th. Trailblazers at the Wizards. Portland -5.5 here on the road in Washington. Questionable because they are thinking that Brad Beal could sit. He's dealing with some nagging injuries. They're already talking about trying to load manage him, maybe sitting him on back-to-backs from now on. He's been playing heavy minutes most of the season when he was healthy. And now that he is getting some injuries, they're starting to look at that and say, hey, maybe we don't want to play our star 38 minutes a game. So that one's interesting. Portland -5.5 again on the road. Portland 17th in terms of pace over the last 10. Washington is 8th. Both of these teams, this should be your pace-up spot of the night. Both teams run with really good pace. Portland slipping to the 17th is kind of interesting because they've been kind of in the top 10 most of the season. Washington has been in the top 5 for most of the season. It's a really good spot here. I know we don't have a total, but I would assume this game to be in the 225 to 230 range. The Wizards, a lot of Wizards games have gone really high totals. So going into the next game, the marquee matchup of the night, you have the 76ers going into Houston to take on the Rockets. Houston is a -4.5 home favorite here, 225 on the total. 76ers ranked 20th in terms of pace over the last 10th. Over the last 10, Houston is 6th. So, of course, pace-up spot here for the 76ers in Houston, who does not play any defense. So this is going to be a great game, obviously, to stack as well, and it will probably be very chalky. Next game we have is the Knicks going into Phoenix to play the Suns. Phoenix -6.5 here at home, 216.5 on the total. The New York Knicks coming in as the 15th fastest team over the last 10 games, with Phoenix coming in 9th. Of course, it's a little bit of a pace-up spot for the New York Knicks, but the New York Knicks have been actually running with a little bit of pace lately. This new coach has actually sped them up. I really like Julius Randle. He's been smashing lately, and his price really hasn't moved much. So let's go with the late night hammer of the night. Pelicans at the Lakers, the one everybody's going to want to watch because this is the return of Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, all going back into LA to face the Lakers and AD and LeBron. AD, the person that they were traded for. The Lakers are a 10.5 point home favorite, 223 on the total. New Orleans coming in as the 11th fastest team over their last 10 games. LA Lakers 21st. So a nice pace-up spot here for the Lakers as well. We know the Pelicans run with a lot of pace, and they're going to want to keep this competitive. So this will be a really interesting game. Let's go ahead and hop right into the positionals. We'll go ahead and talk about the point guard spot. LeBron James, of course, number 1. He is 11.2. He is fresh off a 73.8 fantasy game against Phoenix. New Orleans is allowing the second most fantasy points to the point guard spot on the entire season. We know that New Orleans has not been very good against the point guard spot. LeBron has put up 46 or more in his last 5 at home, 54 or more in his last 3 and 5 at home as well. Of course, it's LeBron. You got to expect he's probably going to want to show out a little bit tonight and show them that he made the right decision because we know GM LeBron here. So LeBron, of course, at 11-2 is never a bad play. It is a little bit high, especially, it's only a 6-game slate, so you're going to kind of have to pick and choose your studs anyways. Damian Lillard at 9.7 gets a nice fast-paced spot here against the Wizards, a team that doesn't guard the point guard spot very well. Washington allowing the third most fantasy points to the point guard spot. He has put up 39 and 54 in his last 2 on the road. Had a little bit of a dud last game, only put up mid-30s, but nonetheless, he was in a smash spot and he was mushed. I hate to say it, but that usually seems to happen more often than not when a guy or a player is just being totally hyped up and hammered by the public and everybody's talking about him on Twitter. And it's the best spot ever, and man, he should just totally smash, and then they don't. That's usually how that goes. So Lillard, I think again at 9.7, his price is way up there. It went up quite a bit, and it's for a good reason. I mean, he's playing the Washington Wizards, where a team that again they've had some really really big totals and play with really really fast pace. Portland again is also a team that plays with fast pace. So Dame at 9.7, excuse me, I think it's totally fine as well. Trae Young is going to return at 9.2. I don't think a lot of people are going to go here. It is in Boston. They are an 11.5 point dog. But, the Hawks have been playing pretty decent in Dog Rose lately. Without Trae Young, John Collins was picking up a lot of the slack. With Trae Young has put up 63.5 and 67 in his last 2 on the road. He's put up over 60 in his last 3 on the road. So, Trae Young at 9.2, I think there's a little bit of value there. This is going to be a pace-up spot for Boston. If Boston takes this game lightly, then Atlanta will easily, hang around till the whole game. So Atlanta coming in as the fastest, pace team over the last 10 games. Really like this spot for Trae Young at 9.2. You get a little bit of a discount on him here. And if anything, of the previous times that he's been injured and came back, he'll play 30-plus minutes. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about the minutes. I'm not worried about the injury. I actually really like it because I think the ownership will be down, and you're getting Trae Young at one of the cheapest prices you've seen him all year. And I hate to say it, but Kemba is not the greatest on defense. Likely he could probably see some Marcus Smart, but I'm just, I'm not going to play that card. I'm just going to look at Trae Young and probably play him for GPPs. Moving along, Russell Westbrook at 9K. I mean, the point guard spot is just stacked here. 45 or more in his last 6 or 7 at home. Over 20 real points in his last 11 games straight. 7 or more rebounds in his last 7 or 9. 5+ assists in all games this season. Russell Westbrook continues to get it done. He gets a pretty decent matchup here at home with the 76ers. They're not exactly the greatest point guard defending team. It's the highest pace the highest total on the board at the current moment. I totally expect this game to be fast paced. And Russell Westbrook at 9K, I think, is in a great spot. Kemba, of course, if he does play, I know he's kind of questionable as well with an illness, so that's something you might want to watch. Atlanta allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the point guard spot over the last 10 games. He's put up 41 and 47 in his last 2. He had a couple of down games, was slumping a little bit before that in the 3 or so prior, and then, he came back to, he bounced back. Slump busted and has had 41 and 47 over his last 2, so he would be in a great spot as well if he does indeed play, which it looks like he will. Ricky Rubio at 7.2, just played on a 4-game road stand there with the Suns. Now they're returning back home, where he put up 44, 50, and 54 in his last 3 at home. He's going to get Elfrid Payton D here against the Knicks at home. Elfrid is questionable as well, so it could turn out that he gets Frankie Smokes, which wouldn't be the greatest. We wouldn't really love that because Frankie is actually a pretty good defender. That one's something we're going to want to watch for. Check that news. Of course, Lonzo Ball at 6K. Get the nice little revenge spot here. He just put up 65 fantasy points last game against Houston. I do not expect a replication of that. The Lakers are not exactly a fast team. Like I said, 21st in terms of pace over the last 10. But this is a pace-up spot nonetheless for the Lakers. Lonzo, was going to want to play really well. At 6K, I don't mind it. DJ Augustine has really shown up as of late. 5K on the price tag. 33.3 and 46.8 in his last 2. 12 or more real points in his last 3. He's put up 4, 6, and 9 assists in those 3, and he's taken 7 more field goals. He's took 7, 9, and 15 in his last 3. with all the injuries that the Magic have, they are having to extend some players, and DJ Augustine has been one of those guys. He's played pretty nice minutes the last 3 or 4 games. He will continue to see nice minutes. This is a decent spot against Miami at home, so it's only a 1.5 point spread. They are anticipating that this game stays pretty close, so I think DJ Augustine will get his usual run. And yeah, I'm not mad at the 5K price tag. He's been balling lately, so if you want to play him in tournaments, I'm totally fine. Ish Smith at 4.2. His last 3 games, he's put up 24, 38, and 25, over 25 in his last 4 of 5. Ish Smith has been playing really well in that second unit with IT coming back. IT has not been playing really well, so Ish has been actually getting a little bit of extended run. Him and Jordan McRae and him and more so him and Jordan McRae have been playing really well in that second unit. So Ish Smith is definitely a spot at 4.2. And then of course, if Elfrid Payton is not available to go, you will get Frankie Smokes at 3.2K. Frank Ntilikina at 3.2 is going to be a massive chalk spot because it is in Phoenix. It is a fast-paced game. And he just put up 35 fantasy points in 23 minutes in his last game. He's played 17 and 23 minutes in his last 2. Preferably, I would rather that Elfrid plays. That way we get Frankie here at the lower ownership at the 3.2K, and hopefully he plays 20-plus minutes. He had 10 assists last game. He didn't really score very many points, real points, but of course, his peripherals are excellent. He does a lot of things extra. He's just not a big scorer. But, he dished out dimes, he rebounds, he piles up the steals. So, Frankie at 3.2, I think I'm totally fine with either way. Moving over to the shooting guard spot, you have Harden at 10-9, 55 or more in his last 5. Philadelphia third most to the shooting guard over the last 10, 54 or more in his last 6 or 7 at home. Brad Beal is questionable. We're going to have to wait and see that news. Devin Booker at 7-9. New York has allowed the number 2 most fantasy points to the shooting guard spot over the last 10. He's put up 45 or more in his last 4, 45, 55, 50, and 46 in those last 4 to put that into perspective. Devin Booker has been coming along really well lately. He's picked up the slack. He's been getting way more aggressive, so that's something we love to see with Devin Booker at 7-9. Drew Holiday at 7.4, staying in that Pelican-Laker game. He's only 7.4. He's put up 40 or more in his last 4 or 5. Gets a nice fast-paced game here. 39 or more in his last 3 or 4 on the road. I think a lot of people don't go there. But I'm a fan of Drew Holiday. CJ McCollum at 7.1. 36 or more in his last 2 of 4. 36 and 51 in his last 2 on the road. Washington, of course, allowing the 7th most to that shooting guard spot over the last 10. We've seen CJ in road games. He's put up 50 fantasy points, showed that upside. So CJ McCollum, I've heard, has been in trade talks. So he could be playing for some trade stock. It's something to consider, but it's a good spot. It's going to be nice, fast pace. So CJ at 7.1, I'm a fan. Jordan McRae at 5.8. If Bill sits, obviously it'd be a lot better spot. As he will just get tons and tons of usage. I mean, he's still seeing good run, and he's still seeing good usage off the bench. 27.3, 55, 33 in his last 3. He's played 29 or more minutes in his last 3, but he's almost 6K, so you kind of want to have Bill out, and that way he's gets a lot of run, plays most of the game. But if Bill plays, I think he's still kind of fine, probably more tournaments. Terrence Ross at 4K. Of course, no Jonathan Isaac. Looks like maybe Aaron Gordon might not play again. Of course, like I said, Magic are just really hurting right now. They have a lot of injuries. He's played 24 more minutes in his last 5. He's taken 17, 12, 7, 11, and 10 field goal attempts in those 5. He hasn't really connected on a big game here lately. He's put up some mid-20s, low 30s. And then, of course, he's had a couple duds as well. He's kind of a volume shooter. He needs the volume to really produce. He doesn't do a whole lot. He'll grab you a couple rebounds and dish you a couple assists, maybe grab you a steal or 2. But you really need the 3-point upside. You need him to hit some shots, and he hasn't really been doing that lately. But nonetheless, this could be the night. He is back at home, and he's going to get run. Like I said, they're just missing too many guys, especially if Aaron Gordon sits once again. So Terrence Ross at 4K. Moving over to the small forward spot, sorry. Ben Simmons at 8-1. Of course, it's Houston. It's a pace-up spot. It's going to be a massive pace-up for Philadelphia. Ben Simmons at 8-1, I'm totally fine with. Houston's allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the small forward over the last 10. 9th most to the point guard. He's put up 36, 49, 55, 60, 47, and 42 in his last 6. So yeah, I think there's value at the price. He's put up over 50 in almost 4 of the 6. So totally fine with some Ben Simmons. Brandon Ingram at 7.8. Get that revenge spot again. 34 more minutes in his last 7 of 8. Over 45 fantasy points in his last 5 of 6. So Brandon Ingram absolutely will be at play at 7-8. One of my more favorite plays, and this could turn into the roster monster spot. I just really hate putting this big of a favorite in my roster monster spot, but I think I really like the spot, and I think he's going to probably play most of the game anyway. It's going to be Jaylen Brown at 7.7. Over 41 fantasy points in his last 4 of 5. Atlanta allowing the 6th most to the small forward spot over the last 10. Gets a nice pace-up spot here against Atlanta at home. 32 or more minutes in his last 4 of 5. If this game stays close and competitive, he should actually absolutely smash. I would probably rather them, not have like Gordon Hayward in or whatever, but they're still with him and Tatum and Gordon Hayward. If Kemba sits, it'd probably be nice. One of those guys that does take up a lot of usage would be great for Jaylen Brown because it's an excellent spot against Atlanta, and he should just totally smash this spot at home. Really like some Jaylen Brown. Kelly Oubre at 6.8 has been really good lately. 45, 49.8, and 53 in his last 3. 31 or more minutes in his last 3 or 4 at home. New York is allowing the Knicks, are allowing the 6th most to that small forward spot over the last 10 games. So it's a good spot for Oubre at home. His price has actually come down a little bit, so I'm a fan of Oubre at 6.8. Tobias Harris is 6.8 or 6.6. I think you're getting a little bit of a discount here. Houston is not very good against a small forward, allowing the 5th most over the last 10. He's been slumping the last 2 games, 15 and 22 fantasy points, but the 2 before that on the road, 44.3, 54.3. So I like the pace spot here for Tobias. I think he's really cheap, and I think this is a good spot. I really do. And I think this is going to be a game where he bounces back. Like I said, he's had 2 duds last 2 games. 2 games before that, 44 and 53. So look for a bounce back here from Tobias. Last but not least, in the small forward slot, if you want to go with Josh Hart at 3.9, 26 or more minutes in his last 4 or 5, over 21 fantasy points in his last 2 or 3, and it is revenge. Totally up to you. Power forward spot, Anthony Davis at 10.3. He has not really been paying off his price tag lately. Over 42 in every single game. Played 36 or more minutes in his last 4. 45 or more fantasy points in his last 4 at home. Just really hadn't been getting it done. LBJ's been shining lately, so that one's one to, you kind of can if you want to, or I think I'm totally fine fading right now. Jason Tatum at 8.2 again. The Celtics in a smash spot against Atlanta at home. Nice pace-up spot. 42 or more in his last 4 or 6. Julius Randle is probably my favorite power forward play. The guy's just been really good lately, and the coach is just letting him go. He put up 48, 61, 48, and 51 in his last 4. He's played 30, 39, 35, and 37 minutes. He's put up 30 or more real points in 3 of those 4. 20 or more field goal attempts in his last 3 or 4 as well. He's being very aggressive. He's staying on the floor. He's not passing. He's taking all the shots. I want all the Julius Randle. John Collins at 7.5. I think Trae Young back actually helps him because it's going to take a lot of the heat off of him. Trae Young is really good at dishing dimes, and Collins is a really good cutter. He's a really good stretch 5. So I'm a fan of John Collins at 7.5. I like the price. Boston is allowing the 9th most to that power forward spot over the last 10. Over 50 fantasy points in his last 2 or 3 on the road. So Collins has been playing well since he returned. And with the young back, I think that's going to help him a little bit. Again, and I like the price at 7.5. Pace up spot. I think John Collins is too cheap. Gordon Hayward in that same game at 7K if you want to pivot from Tatum at 8.2. 32 or more in his last 4 or 5. 35 minutes in his last 2. Playing good minutes, putting up good numbers. It's a good spot. Kyle Kuzma at 5.2. He has put up 29, 32, 34, and 27 in his last 4 or 5. 26 more minutes in his last 4. Of course, gets a good, nice pace-up spot here with New Orleans at home. He's getting good run. So at 5.2, I'm totally fine with Kyle Kuzma. Center spot, Joel Embiid at 9.4. I'm not paying 9 for Hassan Whiteside. I think that's silly. You're paying for his basically ceiling because I think 50 is about. We've seen him go over 50, but he's been hanging around that low 40 range, upper 39s, 38s, and then 45s, 46s. I think you're paying for almost his ceiling here, and I'm not going to do that, even though it is Washington who are allowing the most fantasy points to the center spot. I don't know. If Bill sits, I'm definitely not paying for it. I just can't see myself paying that. I'd rather pay for Embiid here in a fast-paced spot at 9-4 on national television. He's had 5 days of rest. He's put up 42 or more in his last 3 on the road. He's played over 30 minutes in his last 4 of 6. I'll take Embiid at 9-4 over that. Vucevic at 8K. I'll take Vucevic as well. Miami allowing the third most fantasy points at center spot over the last 10 games, which I thought was really interesting. He's gone for 40 or more in his last 4. He's played over 30 minutes in his last 8 straight. He's going to have to be the guy. The offense is going to run through him, especially now without Aaron Gordon, without John Isaac. It's going to be all Vuce. So at 8K, I'm totally fine with. DeAndre Ayton at 7.3 played 32 minutes, put up 41 fantasy points last game against the Knicks at home. He gets the Knicks at home. He gets Taj Gibson. He gets Mitchell Robinson. Whatever you want to say, I really like the spot here for Ayton at home at 7.3. If he's going to play 32 plus minutes, I really like that price. Enes Kanter at 5.5. He's played 23 or more minutes 23 minutes in his last 2 of 3. He has put up 38, 47, 20, and 28 in his last 4. Gets a good spot here against Atlanta, who we know struggles against the center spot. And then on the flip side, you get Alex Len at 4.3. We know Boston also struggles against the center spot, allowing the 9th most over the last 10. He's put up 38. He just played 24 minutes in his last game. He sat out the game or 2 prior to this one. Played 24 minutes, put up 38 fantasy points against Orlando in their last game. So Alex Len at 4.3 is definitely a tournament play. We've seen him dominate this spot actually. So I like Alex Len a little bit. Kim Birch at 3.9 is my last center spot, and I missed him in the power forward. He's played 26 minutes, put up 25 fantasy points last game. He could, of course, be getting more run at the 4 with Vucevic playing the 5. It looks like him and Emil Jefferson were getting a little run. Emil Jefferson only played 14 minutes though, and Kim played 26. 26 minutes. So that one's one to watch for. He's only 3.9. If Aaron Gordon does happen to sit again, you can probably look at him as a punt. So that is going to do it for this Friday edition, January 3rd. Of 2020 edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast. Hope you guys enjoy your Friday and then get ready for the weekend. Let's talk some basketball later.